Hey everyone, it's Nate here with Element Van Life. I just wanted to do my Tuesday Q&A video. I do these every other Tuesday. The way it works, just post your questions in the comment section below, and then I will answer them in the next Q&A video. The next one will be on March 21st. Today is the 7th. The next one will be on the 21st. You guys have to excuse me, my voice is a little raspy. I've been feeling pretty sick recently, so I'm going to do my best to get through this without coughing too much and without sounding too miserable, but it's going to be a little bit of a challenge. We have a lot of great questions to go over this week. First one comes from Clayton Hoskinson. They say, "Hi Nate, I have a few questions. How has the reliability of the Element been since you purchased it? Do you idle it for extended periods of time? How frequent are your oil changes? Where do you get regular vehicle maintenance done?" So some of the maintenance I do myself. Some of it I get done regular, like oil changes and stuff like that. I get done just at shops, like little 5-minute oil change places. Those kind of little, cheap places to go get them done. I don't typically idle it for extended periods of time. I know that it's not really very good for it, so I do try to avoid that. I mean, sometimes I do, but for the most part, I try to avoid that. And then, how has the reliability overall been? I'd say it's been so-so. It's not perfect or anything like that, but it, I've had issues with like the ignition switch, with a few other things that have been kind of a problem, but it's not terrible in terms of like engine and transmission. It's been okay for now. Next question comes from Lane 8. They say, "Don't blame me about Mardi Gras. I'd much rather watch the drone footage." Yeah. I know you answered before, but which one do you use? It's a DJI Phantom 3 standard 2.7K camera. My real questions for your Q&A are, what do you think the Browns will do in the draft, and what would you like to see them do? I have literally no idea what the Browns are going to do in the draft. I know, everyone's saying this and that and all that, but they're completely unpredictable. My guess is that they're going to mess it up. That's just how it is, but I hope they don't. What I'd like to see them do is build an offensive line so that whatever quarterback ends up taking snaps next year doesn't get killed in the first 2 games. But, I guess no one knows, My guess is that they're going to screw it up. That's what I think, because that's what they've done for the last 14 years. It just is what it is. Next question comes from Scott Beisel. They say, have you stayed at any BLM land yet? No, I've never stayed overnight on BLM land. I have explored BLM land when I was in Quartzsite, Arizona. I spent a little bit of time on some BLM land there, but I didn't stay overnight in camp or anything like that. Next question comes from Weger. They say, can you make more of a vlog channel, like recording your daily activities? I am thinking about doing more vlog-style videos in the future, especially once I hit the road. I'm going to try to, increase the rate that I, try to provide more of those and more like day-in-the-life kind of things and stuff like that. Also, you help me escape the difficulties and living the stress, work in college. I'm a young 18-year-old. Ever since I started watching videos, I was hooked. I hope for you the best, man. Thank you, man. I appreciate that. Next question comes from David. They say, I asked this question about the water system. Did you just say 1 gallon? Surely I misheard. No, it's 1 gallon. I have an Ozarka, like the Ozarka little jugs that you can get, the little 1 gallon jugs, or Poland Springs or whatever from the grocery stores. I just get those and just replace them every couple of weeks. I don't use that much water. I mean, I pretty much just use it to brush my teeth and cook occasionally, but I don't really cook that often, so it lasts. Oh, and additionally, have you thought about getting a Joby Gorilla tripod for your smartphone, or do you already have something similar? I do have something similar. It's not quite the same quality level as the Joby Gorilla pods. Probably should get one of those at some point. I've been just too cheap to buy one of those, but at the same time, I spent $20 on the one I have now, and it still doesn't even compare. So, next one comes from Jeff Kim. They say, "Hey Nate, thanks for the great YouTube videos." He said that he sent me an email with this question, so let's check out the email here. I have a small RV. It's a Peugeot 2008, so we don't have those in the United States, but and I know he sent me a bunch of pictures of it. I know that this is too small living in a van like you. I'm trying to use my car for a short-term trip camper van, 1 to 2 days. Okay. So my question is, do you think it's possible to do stealth camping and so it's basically like a station wagon for the most part. It's like a small hatchback, and I absolutely think it's possible to do stealth camping in there. In terms of the size of the car and stuff, I mean, you obviously can't have as much stuff as I do. You can't have that much stuff at all, but you can I mean, you definitely can sleep in it and make it comfortable. I think maybe just trying to make like a level platform in the back, or you put some wood back there or something like that, you could probably level it out, and then also maybe sliding those seats forward up front and trying to increase headroom so that you can stretch out a little more would be really helpful. I know you say that you can sleep and you don't mind sleeping with your legs folded, but I mean, you know, when you're in that situation, it's definitely nice to be able to stretch out if you can, you know. Next question comes from Chris D. They say, "Hey Nate, you have a great channel. I've learned a lot from you." Thank you. I had my first knock, so I need to reevaluate my stealth when it's considering putting reflectix on the windows instead of using a curtain. Have you ever had anyone call medical or law enforcement because of the front windows being blacked out? No, I've never had that happen to me before. In terms of just because of the front windows, you know, I mean, if people notice it, they're going to notice it. If they don't notice it, they don't notice it, and that's just kind of how it is. I don't know if you're using curtains now, switching to reflectix, I think would make it more obvious. So maybe avoiding that would be a good idea. I mean, it's up to you, but I don't know if the curtains are necessarily the issue. I mean, like I said, if it's daylight and they see the curtains, they're going to notice it. And, you know, you just have to be unlucky if you're going to get into trouble with it. But for the most part, I mean, I don't know. I don't know if the curtains are necessarily an issue. Next question comes from Engenboat. They say, "Hey Nate, I'm new. Sorry if you answered this, but how do you get Wi-Fi?" I use public Wi-Fi. I just go to like Starbucks and stuff like that. And then I also have a hotspot on my phone, which I use occasionally for data, but not too often. Next question comes from Nomadic Paw Prints. They say, after having watched most of your videos and having asked a question or two myself, noticing there are a lot of repeat questions, what do you think the 3 most asked questions are that you get? It's a good question. Probably where do you shower? How do you get mail? How do you get mail has got to be number 1. Where do you shower? And then where do you go to the bathroom, usually regarding number 2. That's usually, those are the most common ones that I get, like in terms of everything, in terms of like comments on videos and, you know, in the Q&As, but then also in like real life as well, like all of those things. Those are probably the most common ones. What do you think the best question, one of the best questions that you were asked was? That's a good question too. That might be it. No, I don't know. I think someone asked me once about Glacier National Park, and it caused me to realize that I should probably like look into that, and then I looked it up and ended up going there, and that was like the best experience that I've ever had, you know. So I think that might be probably is one of them. There's a lot of great questions though. I've been asked so many great ones, it's really tough to remember all of them, especially on the spot like this. By the way, the colorful spring in Yellowstone is the Grand Prismatic Spring. I couldn't remember what it was called. Right on. Thanks for that. I really wish I had a chance to see it. Maybe next time. Next one comes from Mello. What was the most challenging when you first began to live out of the element? You know, when I first started, I didn't really think there were too many issues. Everything was just kind of like I was in that honeymoon phase and everything was perfect. And then I got a staph infection like 3 or 4 months into it, and that was probably the most challenging thing that I've dealt with this entire time. And then what would you do differently if you had to start it all over? It's really tough to say. I don't know if there's too much that I would do differently though. I don't know. That's tough. I don't know if I can answer that. Next one comes from looking good. They say, for your Q&A, how are you from Massachusetts and have no accent? I have no idea. When I talk to like my family and stuff on the phone, I start to pick up a little bit of their accent, but for the most part, yeah, I don't know. That's a good question. Next question comes from Mike M. Hi Nate, I love your videos. Thank you. What type of phone plan do you use on the road? I have a Verizon, it's just a standard Verizon phone plan, just a smartphone, LG G4 with Verizon. Just regular Verizon. Jack Ryan, question, besides bills, do you spend a lot on gas? If I'm moving around a lot, I do. If I'm not, then no, I don't usually spend that much. Like right now, I'm here in New Orleans. I'm not really driving that often. I'm spending like $100 a month. But if I hit the road, it's going to obviously be more than that. Next one comes from Matt at the Freedom Van. Would you ever consider living in a Prius? There's a larger version Prius, the Prius 5, with approximately 6 feet long space behind the front seats. I guess 40 miles to the gallon. Yeah, I've definitely thought about the Prius before, man, for sure. I don't know if I would make the switch just because I have so much stuff between like I'd have to like give up my guitar. Probably wouldn't have to give up the surfboards. I could figure out a way to mount the surfboards, but guitar, and then like I have the drone in here. Like I have like more stuff in here that fits nicely in here that I don't know if would fit in there. So maybe I could get like a storage container on the roof or something like that. But it's other than that, that's my biggest concern with the Prius, is that there's just not enough space for all of my stuff, which is crazy because I don't really have that much stuff, but it's enough, I guess, to make me worried about it. And then AJ Feynman also asked the same question about the Prius, but the same answer. I definitely see the perks to it, for sure. I mean, it's stealthier, you can run the AC all night, it's amazing, but I just don't know if I'd be able to do it. Next question comes from PlayStation 2014. You like hammocking? I have actually thought about putting a hammock in here, but I've never slept like a full night in a hammock, so I don't actually know if that'd be a good idea, but maybe I'll get a hammock at some point. Next one comes from Jerry Pitchford. They say, have you ever thought about a 12-volt slow cooker? Yeah, I have thought about that. I don't think that it would run effectively on my 35 amp hour battery. It would drain it. It would just not work. But maybe for like driving around when I'm on a road trip, I could cook up a meal while like driving for like 4 hours at a time or so. That would be pretty cool. But yeah, as of right now, I'm probably not going to get one. Next one comes from Sage Roddy. They say, hey Nate, I'm in the process of converting my Element. You've been an incredible resource for me. Thank you. My dog and I leave in the beginning of April for an indefinite journey. Right on. I would like to extend my trip as long as possible, so questions are finance related. How well are the affiliate links, Amazon affiliate links, paying? And then what would you suggest for work for someone without any web or tech skills? So in terms of work without web or tech skills, I mean, it's really tough to make money online without web or tech skills. Obviously, it's self-explanatory. So, I mean, part of it is just taking the time to teach yourself and learn like some of those skills that are necessary in terms of like digital marketing. And it doesn't necessarily have to be like how to code or develop websites, but just, how to get comfortable with like different things online. Like I said, like digital marketing. I mean, you're talking about Amazon affiliate links. There's a lot of ways to make money through the affiliate program. For me right now, no, they're not paying that well. It certainly isn't enough to live off of or anything like that. But yeah, I mean, and then in terms of without leaving the dog alone, though, my other suggestion would be like to do work camping jobs. That's kind of what I do, or like partially what I do. It's a combination, but it's tough because then you would have to leave the dog alone. So that's a tough situation to be in, for sure. The next one comes from Little Mao. They say, do you use Tinder to meet friends or dates? And if not, how do you meet new people on dates? Yeah, I mean, I've used Tinder before, definitely. And then also just going out and meeting people, like doing things that I enjoyed doing, like surfing and stuff like that when I was in California. And then here, I have a lot of friends here. We'll go out and stuff like that. You can meet people if you're out in the world. It's definitely doable. Next one comes from Chow in 09. They say, why don't you live in a house or apartment or with a family? In terms of a house or apartment, I don't really want to pay rent, so or buy or have a mortgage, so that's probably part of the reason why I don't live in those. And then in terms of having a family, I don't think I'm ready to have a family yet. I'm definitely not at that point in my life. It might not ever be. Next one comes from Cool Your 2 Foots. They say, what are your thoughts, opinions on tiny houses? Ever consider them as an option to live in? Absolutely. I'm a big fan of the tiny house movement, and at some point I would definitely consider living in a tiny house full time. It's definitely something I'm thinking about for the future. Simon Humphreys, how do you pass the time of the evening in the van if you're not working or seeing friends? Do you enjoy reading? I'm usually working or seeing friends up until that point. Like, I'll stay at Starbucks until 10 o'clock if I'm not hanging out with friends, and I'll work there. Or, I mean, sometimes I'll hang out in here though, but it's very, very rare. I don't really like to hang out and just spend time in here. I do occasionally read from time to time though, and if I do read, it's on my phone. I don't read like books. I just read directly on my. I mean, I read the books, but they're on my phone. It's like an ebook. Yohama Rosum says, which laptop do you have or use? I have an Asus ZenBook UX303UB, I think it is, or 305. I think it's 303. It's a 13-inch laptop. It's got a dedicated graphics card. I love it. Christopher Diaz, did you ever have the police knock on your window? Yes. Yeah, I've had a couple of times where I've had that happen. One time with an actual police officer, and then other times with like security guards in Walmarts. Next question comes from IELU Boy. They say, Nate, I need help with my Element. Any tips? I guess what's going on with it? Are you thinking about converting it? Are you planning to travel with it? Is there like problems with it? Let me know, and I can give you tips for sure. Gary G, if Honda was to release another version of the Honda Element, what would you suggest or recommend? that would help in the camping aspects. I don't know. I really think they did a perfect job with the Element. It's like amazing. So that's basically how I look at it. It's pretty incredible. But I know they've talked about a new Element, but I think it's going to be a lot smaller and more compete with like the Kia Soul type thing. So I would recommend that they make it more like the old Element, if I could. Ruat Kali says, how much do you pay for car insurance? I pay like $100 a month. I do carry full coverage on the Element though, so that's probably why it's so expensive. Next question is Craig Thomas. Hey, really enjoy the videos. Have you ever considered taking a few months out and traveling to Europe? Plenty of great surf spots there. Yeah, definitely. I would love to travel around Europe for a few months. That sounds amazing. And spend time surfing in France and in Portugal and Spain. I mean, it would be incredible. Gary Cole, Nate, do you prefer the West Coast or the East Coast? Because they both have a very different vibe. That's a tough question. I don't know which one I prefer. It's tough to say. I really like the West Coast, but I think it's because it's more new to me and because I haven't seen as much of it. So I kind of want to go back there more than I want to go to the East Coast, but that's probably the only reason why. I bet if I was from the West Coast, I'd be saying the same thing about the East Coast. Would you ever consider getting a pet like a small dog or cat? Definitely I'd consider a small dog. It's tough with the Element. I think I would probably need a bigger van. Next question comes from Joshua Morrow. Hey Nate, so as I said before, I just packed up and moved to California. I'm living in San Francisco right now. Right on, I was living out of my truck. I love it, but I needed work, so I bought a van this week. Cool. Any tips on what I should add first? Sync solar. Do you miss having a TV? No, I absolutely do not miss having a TV. I don't really ever watch TV. It is kind of weird, like when I'm in like a bar or like at a friend's house or something and the TV's on, like I'm like more interested in watching it. Like, or at like the gym at Planet Fitness, they have them in the locker rooms and I'm always like changing and like watching the TV. But like it's just because I don't really have one, but I don't really miss it though. Like I wouldn't go out of my way to install one in here. First thing to do, I mean, if you have a little bit of money saved up, going solar and getting a fridge will make your life a million times easier. It is a little expensive though, but in the end, it's probably worth it. Jim Onyx says, hey Nate, thank you for sharing your ELM adventures. You mentioned another YouTuber. I heard I Am Jakey. Yeah, that was it's I Am Jake is the name of that channel. I've seen a bunch of his videos. They're really great. Andrew Loaz says, great videos, man. Have you ever had an issue with cops or anyone telling you to move? So I just answered that question. And then in terms of my philosophy in that situation is just to, if it is confirmed that it is a cop, if I see the blue lights, I'm gonna cooperate with them and be as respectful as I can and just hope that they're gonna be respectful to me in return. I'll move to another place and go to sleep for the rest of the night. Imperial Knight 01, I've been watching this channel for a while, and so far I love it so much. Thank you. My question is, what is your reason for living in a van? Have you ever thought of getting an RV? I think I prefer the van just because it is more stealthy and I can kind of urban camp a little bit easier than if I were to have a full-size RV. It's also cheaper on gas, it's more mobile, it fits into regular-sized parking spots, and those are all things that I would want to keep. If I did go to an RV, I would consider a Class B, but I wouldn't consider anything really any bigger than that. Maybe one of the small like Class Cs that they don't make anymore that fit into parking spots, but other than that, that's all I would really consider. Next question comes from Adam Galambos. They say, hey Nate, awesome channel, great content. Thank you. You've got a great attitude. Not sure if this has been answered, but how do you contend with maintenance on the Element? Do you do it yourself to save money? So I just answered that, I think, a little while ago, but in terms of, I do most of it myself if I can, but in terms of like oil changes, I'll get that done, at a shop just because it's pretty much the same price and I don't have to deal with discarding oil and stuff like that. David Dodson, you say that your monthly budget is sporadic. Can you run us through what your monthly living expenses are like? Things like gas, repair, tolls. It really varies based on if I'm traveling or if I'm not. Right now, it's tough to say. It's tough to say right now. At some point, I think I'd like to make a video about this because a lot of people do ask about this, and I feel like it is helpful. But in terms of like food, leaving out food costs, health insurance, because those are too individual to the person. It's tough to say exactly, but I am, as a total, between like $1,200 to $1,500 a month, between all of those things: gas, health insurance, eating out, food, what else? Car insurance, and then just like the random miscellaneous stuff that happened. Like this month, I broke a pair of flip-flops yesterday, so I had to order a new pair of flip-flops. And I like to get like a nicer pair because I pretty much only wear flip-flops, so I have to wait for it to come in. It's a pain in the butt. But like things like that, like miscellaneous expenses, all of that combined, somewhere between $1,200 and $1,500 a month. Next one comes from Anthony S. Do you read a lot? So not really. I do read occasionally, but not really too much. Where do you get your books? Online. I read entirely on my phone. I will not read like an actual book. They just take up way too much space. I have a couple of hard copy books, but only ones that I really like, but it's just too much of a pain. The backlight on your phone, it makes it easier to read at night in here. I don't have to put any lights on, and it just saves a lot of space. I just find it more minimalist. And then, what books have you been reading lately? I don't know. I'm not really reading anything currently, actually, which is kind of bad. Normally, I always have something that I'm like slowly reading. What's the last book I read? I think Homage to Catalonia by George Orwell. Billy Loves Bongs says, "Hey Nate, sorry if this has been answered before, but do you indulge in alcohol or cannabis every once in a while?" I do drink occasionally. In terms of smoking marijuana, I don't really ever do that. I have nothing against it. I'm not like morally opposed to it or anything like that. It's just it's not really my thing. It never really has been. Jesse Stafford, I got a lot to say, but if you want to answer, just wondering, have you kind of embraced more of a vegetarian lifestyle? Yeah, I think in terms of cooking, I know a lot of my videos include like cooking like vegan style dishes. So yeah, I mean I do tend to eat that way a little more frequently, but no, I mean the honest answer is no. I mean I ate fried chicken like 2 nights ago. Like I'm certainly not vegan or vegetarian or anything like that, but occasionally though I do try to cook that way because I feel like it's more healthy. You also asked, have you thought about getting the element wire to be plugged into shore power? No, not at all. I don't really ever stay at campgrounds or anything like that. I mean, and when I do, I can just plug my extension cord in and I'll have power there. I don't see a reason to plug into shore power. Mike Boulos, hey Nate, I love this channel, but I had a question. What makes living in a van different than a small RV? I think I mentioned this just a minute ago, but in terms of like in terms of fitting in like a single parking spot and stuff like that is really important. Being more stealthy. I don't know if I necessarily prefer the Element to the Sienna. I think they're pretty similar. I think the Sienna is the Element is a little more stealthy because no one really would ever expect someone to be living in an Element. But the same pretty much applies for the Sienna, so I wouldn't say that I prefer one or the other. In terms of a small motorhome like a Class A or like a Class C or something like that, I think it is more stealthy, those two other options, and would be better off. Matt P, if you don't want to answer, I completely understand, but in general, how do you feel about drinking alcohol and sleeping in the Element, or do you abstain? I typically don't drink alcohol in here ever, and if I do go out and drink with friends, a lot of the times I'll try to stay at their place and just like pass it on the couch or something like that to avoid being, under the influence in the Element, just because you can get in trouble. Even if you're not driving, if your keys are on the dash, you can still have issues with that. David Dodson, Nate, you mentioned that you would consider a real camper van like a road trick if you buy one. How will you contend with not being stealthy anymore? Yeah, I think I would stay more at campgrounds and Walmarts and stuff like that. But then also, I think that I would, I don't know, I think that you could still get away with it for the most part. I mean, like in California, there are road trucks and like Class Bs and stuff parked on the side of the road everywhere, and it's not really too much of an issue. So, I don't know. It is obviously going to be a little less stealthy, but I think I can make it work. Stephen Hidley says, hey Nate, good job. It sounds like a good job. Do you ever think about keeping such a job and settling down? So I think you're talking about my most recent job that I just started. No, I don't think so. It's tough to say, but I don't think so. I don't think I really want to settle down at any point. I want to be able to travel full time for a while, so that's kind of my plan, at least for the immediate future. Next question comes from Susan Marie RTR. Do you ever see yourself married or having children? That's tough. I don't know. I can see you being a great dad. I'm a 59-year-old grandma. Cool. Yeah, I don't know. It's tough. I don't know. Right now, I don't really see myself having children at any point, but it's tough to say. It's really tough. I like working with kids. Like I like coaching and stuff like that, but I don't know if I could ever have my own. Ruby, I assume you learned at least some Spanish in school. with a major like Spanish language and literature. So if you consider taking advantage of the skill and going to a Spanish-speaking country, yeah, I've definitely thought about traveling around a Spanish-speaking country. That would be really cool. Unfortunately, my Spanish language skill is kind of like I still obviously can speak Spanish, but it's just not as well as it probably was at one point, just because I haven't really been using it, and you know, if you don't use it, you lose it, kind of thing like that. And then how do you get an address in a city without actually living it or taking up residence and wasting money on rent? So if you you can just Google search like private mailboxes, and they come up, and then you can just go and rent the mailbox, and then you just use that as your address. So 123 Main Street, number 222. It can't just be like a PO box. It has to be like an actual mailbox, but you can find those. Adam Thung, you've said you have done freelance web design. Any tips for graphics and web designers, graphic and web designers, for attaining new clients? I use Upwork, which has brought me a few clients, actually all of the clients that I've ever worked for through Upwork, and then it's a good website, upwork.com. Sign up for that. And then there's like Elance and like there's all kind of websites and stuff. It's tough. It's very competitive, and it's a pain in the butt, really, but it's definitely possible. One day I'd hope to be able to keep freelancing up and running enough to get a van. Right on, man, definitely. So Springer Dog, hi Nate, just a couple of questions. Would you consider Element? How do you get your mail? Just joking. That's funny. My real question is, does your back ever hurt from sitting in the position like this with your laptop? Your videos are excellent. Thank you. No, my back doesn't really hurt because I pretty much only sit like this when I'm recording this video. Like, I don't like hang out in here normally. Like, I'm gonna go to Starbucks after this and I'll be in there sitting up fully the entire way. I mean, obviously it's not comfortable, but I don't really hang out in the Element. I try to avoid it as much as I can. Big Fat Country says, bro, I love your videos. Thank you. Let's see here. Just so that, yeah, so he says, however, I aspire to live the life that you're living. Keep doing what you're doing and staying out of the miserable life that 99% of the people in this country have to live. Just so that you read this as a question in your next video. What's your favorite color? I think it's probably green. Probably green, like an aqua color, an aqua shade of green. Resale life, you have mentioned that your student loans, have you done research on income-based repayment? Not really. I don't know how good that is for your credit. I don't know how that would affect like credit and stuff like that. And then after 20 years, your loans would be dismissed. It is an interesting concept. I definitely would probably qualify for it. My income is not like super high or anything like that, but at the same time, I mean, I can just keep paying it off, and in a few years they'll be gone. And you know, I took the loans out, so I feel like I have an obligation to pay them back. You know, Beto Martinez, hey Nate, have you ever been invited by a viewer to stop by their house and spend some time? I have been before. I don't think I've ever actually had the chance to do it though, but yeah, something that I would be open to at some point. I think interacting with them would help, definitely. Greetings from Sacramento, first time commenter and just subbed. Thank you for your support, appreciate it. I'm really enjoying all the videos. Brian Kawakami says, Kawakami says, hey Nate, since you have the solar battery charging inside the Element and you have the windows and doors closed at night, the vehicle is not a concern of hydrogen gas in the event of an overcharge. I don't know. You know, hopefully it doesn't overcharge. The solar charge controller would keep it from overcharging, and also it doesn't charge at night because the sun's not out. So I don't know. I don't know if there's too much of an issue with that. But yeah, I mean, the charge controller should hopefully do its job. Also, it's an AGM sealed lead acid battery. It's gel, so I don't think it has as much of a risk, but hopefully I don't have any issues with it. Red Rhino Vlog Nation, bro, I love your channel. You're so much inspiration. I love the lifestyle. Thank you. I've been recently thinking of living on the road, like you. Trailer conversion. My question is, what type of stuff do you do during your daily task? So I'm just made a video about this, like my day, like a day in the life kind of thing, and that's just like a regular day, you know, and it kind of shows like the motions that I go through and stuff like that. So definitely I recommend checking it out. Kevin X, hey man, my question is about the Reflectix blacked out windows. Is that legal to drive with your windows blacked out? Have you ever been pulled over for it? I've never been pulled over for it. Thanks man, I appreciate all the good info. Thank you. So yeah, in terms of if it's legal or not, I'm pretty sure it is actually legal, as long as you have two windows that you can see the back of the Element or the back of your vehicle with. I think it's okay. So you can have this one blacked out if you can see out the side mirrors. I think that's how it is. I don't know. Maybe it's probably different in certain states, but it is what it is. Susan RTR 2017's got another question here. They say she listed some channels that she watches: Driving and Vibin', Adventure Van Man, Dave 2D, Pandemonium, Camper Van Kevin. Any that I follow. In terms of, yeah, I mean, I'm a big fan of Brian's channel, Adventure Van Man. I watch all of his videos. Into the Mystery 13, I watch some of Jed's stuff. I Am Jake is one that came up earlier that I watch. I mean, there's a few of them that I try to. Camper Van Kevin, I've seen a lot of his stuff. You know, it's just... I mean, all of those I've heard of, obviously, and watched some of their videos, but I don't really have a lot of time to keep up with all of them, unfortunately. I wish I had more time to watch all of them, but definitely, those are some of the ones that I watch. All right, the next question comes from Super Cooled. Looks like it is the last question here, and it's want to submit my Q&A question for the next session. Do you see yourself being a lifelong MGTOW person, or will you at some point settle down? So I had to look up what that meant. I think it's men going their own way, so it's like someone just going against the grain, I'm guessing. And I do kind of see myself always being in that sort of a position where I don't really know what the true definition of this is. I might be like completely missing something here, but I think that's right. Anyways, I mean, in terms of like settling down and stuff like that, I don't know. I mean, at some point, yes, I'll probably like start taking it a little more easy at some point in the future. But that being said, like even upon doing so, I still plan to kind of live my own way and live minimally and always be conscious of expenses and you know, what I own and my time, you know, and being able to enjoy the time that I have while I'm still alive. So I hope that answers the question. So that sums it up for all the questions this week. Like I said, guys, the next one will be on March 21st. Hopefully I'll have my voice back and we'll be able to get through this a little bit faster. I'm sorry, I know this is a long one here, but thank you guys for watching. Please like and subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll talk to you all in the next video.